you're wondering if you have what it takes to gig, you'll definitely know after you watch this video. If you're wondering why in the heck I'm in the middle of the woods explaining this, you'll also know that. So I'm in the middle of the woods because I also run a video channel called Smith Consulting that I'll leave a link to in the description at the end of the video as well. And it's all about video because I run a video company as well, and I'm shooting for that. There's a ton of challenges when you go to get gigs. You know, are you skilled enough? Do you know the material? Do you have the right gear? Can you even get a gig? Have you met with musicians or other people that you're gonna need to help you with your gig? Because there's a lot of other positions, not just people that are in the band as well. So there's a ton of challenges to get through. For those of you without a long attention span, here's the answer. If you can navigate all the challenges that I just laid out in front of you, then you're ready to gig. It's kind of that simple. Let's get into those challenges for the people that have a little bit more attention span. So when you're looking at a first gig, you really need to have at least 10 songs down. I don't care if you're a solo performer or functioning as a band, you really need 10. And they have to be, good enough that at least friends and family want to listen to you play them, because they're going to hear you play them a ton. The next step is, do you have the right gear? So you don't need the latest and greatest, and you don't need all the big powerful amps that most people actually bring to their first gigs and they blast the ears off of their audience. Usually in the smaller venues that you're going to be playing at first, smaller is better for gear. And but what you need to make sure is that everybody can hear themselves. If you're a solo performer, that you can actually hear yourself playing in some kind of mic'd configuration. Also with gear, especially for a first gig, don't be afraid to rent. Okay, you're not gonna make as much money. You're not gonna make that much money on your first gig anyway. But if you rent something small, you don't have to do the big investment of buying and then you have to do a whole bunch of gigs to pay it back. Renting is smarter, even if it takes all of your profit right at the beginning. So you'll need bandmates and other people to help out with things. And this is actually the biggest area of weakness, people letting you down. So if you're putting your own gig together and you have a musician that is opening up for you or you're opening up for them, I've had people where that musician doesn't show and it just becomes a big problem for the gig. And you'll need somebody to, if you're selling tickets, that's at the door collecting the tickets, making sure that everybody that's coming in is paying and doing that job. You'll need somebody to make graphics for social media advertising or posters if you're doing it the old school way. So that you need help. Chances are you don't have all of those skills, at least right off the bat. It's really about working on the relationships and depending on those people. And if you have bandmates, they're also the same kind of dependability issue. What if the drummer's sick on that day? Are they the kind of drummer that can, push through almost anything? Or are they, going to be flaky and just not show, or show up late, or something really dumb? If you have a gig and you've done the work to get the gig, chances are you're ready because somebody heard your pitch and they believe in you enough and you believe in yourself enough that you can actually sell yourself or your band. And so chances are you are probably pretty ready. But if somebody else did all the setup and got you the gig and did everything, there's a good chance that you actually won't be ready if it's your first gig because you won't know all of the things that can go wrong and what to check for. But if you've had to do the initial work, you'll be thinking about what could go wrong, hopefully. So the biggest thing that I see that people run their first gig or first number of shows is that they kind of assume everything's going to work out and it's all just going to be okay. And chances are it won't. Chances are there'll be a lot of things that go wrong. I run a lot of professional shows and there's a ton of things that go wrong. We plan for as much as possible and then we have resources available for when new surprises happen. So, assuming that that person that said they're going to take tickets at the door is going to be there, That's not acceptable. What you have to do is, 2 weeks out, recheck with them and say, hey, are you still good with that? And then the day before, let them know the schedule sometime beforehand. And then the day before saying, hey, just checking if you need anything and make sure they make contact with you and that everything is going okay. That kind of attention to detail is what's needed to make sure that your people are doing what they need to be doing. The rule is don't trust anybody until that they've proven that they're dependable. If they haven't proven they're dependable, give them a chance to prove themselves, but not without checking in often, just in case they're not. The biggest difference between professional and amateur event managers, which essentially you are if you're actually organizing your own gig, is the level of attention to detail. This was really evident to me on an event that I did in the last couple of months, where there was kind of a community group of volunteers that typically, run events in their space, and it has all of the things that you'd expect with volunteers, where things are disorganized, people aren't really checking in on things. But at this event, I was hired by a person that is in the pro industry of marketing, and I've done events with before. And so they're expecting, my attention to detail, and that's not what they were getting. So they brought me in to kind of make sure all the details were happening. But it was really, when I pointed out, hey, they're not used to functioning at this level of detail, you can't get angry. You just gotta, work with them and do the check-ins. And we have a team of people that we don't trust, and we're just gonna make sure that if person A fails, we have something in place as a backup plan, and that we can replace any of their people anytime we need to, just because we didn't know the team. And we did it without being rude or anything like that. It's really, and actually their team, for the most part, turned out to work out really well. But our level of detail and checking on things definitely was a point of frustration for them. And I kind of explained, what we're used to doing and how we're used to doing it. And then they did, kind of understand. And the other thing, though, is they're volunteers, so having a bigger attention to detail takes a lot more time, quite frankly. And it's terrifying to think of all the things that can go wrong. I can guarantee you it's worse to have it go wrong and not have thought about it than to be afraid that it might go wrong and deal with it in advance. So our whole schedule's getting tumbled over. We had one kerfuffle of ours that happened at the beginning and a bunch of so our schedule's kind of fallen behind, and we're trying to mitigate and trying to figure out exactly where our point of weakness is, and I'm not sure, so I'm a little stressed about our schedule right now. I'd said at the beginning that if you can actually navigate all of these challenges and have a good attention to detail, you're ready to gig, and that really is, I believe that. The good news is that this is very accurate, because most people will not be able to navigate all of those things to get to the gig. But if you're one of the people that can persevere, and it's all about perseverance, if you're one of the people that can, then you actually have a show that you can repeat again and again and again. So all that, and it's usually 6 months to a year to get your first show in order. But once you've done it once, there's no reason you can't repeat that same show the next week or 3 weeks later and do it a whole bunch of times to new audiences. This is basically what touring is. So don't think about it like you're putting a year's worth of work into one show. You're putting a year's worth of work into however many shows you can stretch it into, and each show you need to do a debrief about, okay, how did this go? What can we do better at the next thing? Who do we trust? Who do we not trust? Who do we want to keep? Who do we need to let go? And you just move forward with your team getting better and better and better all the time.
So how's it going here backstage?
It's going great. I'm China in Civ 5, and I'm trying to battle the city state that's just right getting up in my grill. So that's the real concern right now for the show, honestly.
There's nothing here that I've described that the average person can't do. There's nothing that's unattainable. Somebody that hasn't studied music isn't going to be able to get the material down. But chances are, if you're watching this video, you're kind of in that category. So these are all concrete things that at a pretty high level that you'll need to dig down into, and there's a lot into each one of these steps. But this is kind of the framework that you can get into, and I have other videos, and I'll be making other videos on more detail on each of these steps. But this is pretty attainable and pretty doable once you understand the formula. First one's the hardest, and they get easier because you start to understand what to do time and time again. Thanks so much for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one, or I'll see you out on tour.